What is up, fellow summoners? Welcome to the channel today. Thanks for stopping by. This first look review on Angela is a video that I really could not wait to get put together and to show you guys. I have been very intrigued by the character since I first did the review, that first look review from the MCOC mod video that dropped. She is a very complex character. If you don't take the time to really read through her ability list or watch some gameplay, you'll be very confused on exactly what is going on and how everything kind of times together. But I think that in the back of my mind, I knew she was going to be a hard-hitting character, but I don't really think that I was expecting necessarily what I found. So I won't spoil anything here. I will jump over into the rank up to begin with. I'll then spend a little bit of time over in her ability list. So yeah, let's jump into the rank up. I'll catch you on the other side. So I probably won't go into quite as much detail on the ability list as I normally would with any other characters, only because I have already done all of that. Gave a very in-depth look and guide in my first look video on Angela, so I'll leave a link to that down in the description below if you're still confused after I walk through this on how she works. I definitely take some more time and cover all of that in that video, so go check that out. For the rest of you that are still here, She's kind of a unique character because she's always gaining a buff throughout the entire fight. She's got 4 different buffs that she can gain, and those buffs are all determined based upon how much power she currently has. And I really feel like the description here actually does a pretty good job of explaining all this. You can see there are 4 different buffs that she gains. There's 4 different states. You can read through it there, but I think the part that gets a little bit confusing is how you duplicate the buffs. So I'll just read it through there under her passive. It says, each time Angela lands a critical hit, she duplicates the buff that she is being granted by her current power level. And then that buff will last for 15 seconds. So if I start the fight off there, you can see less than the special 1, you get an armor up buff. If I crit while I have less than 1 special, I'm going to duplicate that armor up buff. If I had 1 full bar of special, I had a fury, I was in my fury state there, I had a fury buff active. I would duplicate that fury buff every time I crit. And the same thing with the precision buff, same thing with the aptitude buff. And you can only duplicate it once, so you can only have a maximum of 2 buffs going at one time. Now, there is a way to grab 1 more buff of either fury or armor up, and that is with your special 1 or your special 2. And I think this is the part that people don't quite understand. Whenever you use a special 1, you automatically will gain a fury buff that lasts for 5 seconds. Now, if you use your special 1 and you already have a fury buff that is active, that will actually last for 20 seconds instead of 5 seconds. The same thing applies with the special 2. Whenever you use it, you're going to get an additional armor up buff. If you already have an armor up buff that is active when you use the S2, it's going to last for 20 seconds instead of 5. So in this way, because the 20 seconds is actually quite a bit of time, let's say I get to one full bar of power, so I automatically am granted a fury buff and I crit, so it duplicates that fury buff. Now I have 2. When I use my S1, it is automatically going to give me a 3rd fury buff, but I have now dropped below 1 bar of power, so I lose one of my fury buffs, so now I've got 2 active. Now what will happen is, as soon as I get back again and fill up my 1 bar of power, I'm going to grab a 3rd fury buff again. And her fury buffs are some of the strongest fury buffs that I can find anywhere in the game. So if I scroll back up here, you'll see the fury attack is increased for my Angela at 4-star 550. Each fury is 899. And remember, you can get all the way up to a maximum of 3 fury stacks if you're playing it right. So 899 times 3 is 2697. That is a huge increase to the attack. If I go, let me just show you a couple of other champs that I found just for comparison's sake. Now do keep in mind that I'm not saying just because that one character's Fury attack is higher than another person's Fury buff makes them a better character or they do more damage. I'm just trying to look across the board and compare her with other champions who get Fury buffs. I mean, there are things like armor break, armor penetration, all of that stuff comes into play that Angela doesn't necessarily have. But just for comparison's sake, some other 550 4-stars that I pulled up to take a look at. I looked at Thor. Thor, his Fury buff is 433 for the particular one that I found. When he is stunned, he gains an additional Fury buff that can stack of 500. So even that right there is only at 933. That's only, with a double buff, only a couple points higher than Angela with a single Fury buff. Star-Lord's Fury buff at 767. Phoenix, each stack of Fury is 209. I even looked at some 5-star characters. I've got a Jugs here. His Fury buff is only 869. Captain Marvel at a 5-star. She hits really hard. Her Fury buff's only at 990. My particular Winter Soldier at rank 4 as a 5-star is only 852. And I was really interested to see Hulk. Hulk gains what the description calls a massive Fury buff when he drops below 25% health. And even that, my Hulk at 550 is only 1349. So again, all I'm trying to say is when you stack up, 2 or 3 Fury buffs, even at just 2, it's almost 1800 attack power. There's really no other character I can think of as a 4-star that gets anywhere close to that. Then you combine that with the fact that she's got a crit buff that she gains shortly after that, and then that kind of all leads up to the aptitude buff, which increases it further. So really all I'm trying to point out with this is that she hits hard as long as you have Fury buffs active. And that really is kind of the name of the game there. If you know how to gain the Fury buffs and kind of where to keep her on that sweet spot there between the Fury buffs and the crit buffs, that is when you'll be doing your most damage. So let me switch over here to some gameplay. I'll show you how you need to set everything up and then kind of the rotation that you're going to want to go through to keep her kind of doing her max damage throughout the fight. So intentionally, I did not pair her with any synergy teams. You can see here she's all by herself. I didn't want to in any way overinflate her numbers here to show you. As we start off, this is just her base damage, which the rotation that you're going to want to do, and you got to kind of think of your specials differently. Your S1 and S2 are not necessarily really there for damage. They are very much there to control her buffs with. Now, you want to push as close as you can to your S2. The reason for that is you're going to fire off your S1 at the beginning so that you make sure you get your 20-second Fury buff. And remember, you have to have an active Fury to get it. So right after his special, I'm going to use my S1 here. And at this point, I've got my 20-second Fury, and I'm so close to going back into 1 full bar of power there. As soon as I hit him, I grab that 3rd Fury. And from the point when you finally get that 3rd Fury all the way up until right before your 3rd bar of power, that is kind of the sweet spot. That is when you're going to be doing the absolute max damage, which, as you can see there, even critting with light attacks, it's almost 2,000 damage. Mediums are critting for a little over 3,000. That is quite a bit of damage. So what you'll do, and you just saw me use it there, is right before you get to your S3, go ahead and fire the S2. So that'll push you down basically to where you need to be. You'll be right back into your Fury state with your S1, and then kind of rinse and repeat and grab that 20-second Fury. Do the same thing over and over again. Now, Angela is the one character that I would say is probably okay using the S3 if you want. In kind of shorter fights, the rotation that I've shown you is probably best. But maybe in special events, or definitely if you've got Cosmic Supremacy, the buff that increases your duration by 30 seconds, the S3 is very strong. As you can see there, it hits for 15,000. That is altered dramatically by the number of buffs you have active. Every buff that you have increases the attack power. I think it's by 500. So as many buffs as you can grab, the better off you're going to be there. But really, for most fights, like I said, that's kind of special case. For most fights, you're going to want to stay in the rotation that I show you. Now, this here is with the synergy team. Basically, you're really going to want to focus on crit damage, not necessarily critical rate, but crit damage buffing that. Because for a lot of the fight, she does have the crit precision buff, so you don't really necessarily want to stack that. You're really looking at doing more damage per crit. And with the synergy team here, you can see my medium or my lights are hitting well over 2,000. My mediums are now hitting well over 3,000, which if you're critting, 3 or 4 out of the 5-hit combo, you're doing, every bit of between 7 to 10,000 damage, which is a lot of damage from just a regular 5-hit combo. You can see here, right there, I showed that S3. Again, even with the synergy team, it really does not affect that S3. Basically, with the same number of buffs, I got the same result there with 15,000. At this point, I think there's only a few other things to mention. One, you see the regen that is going off there, and that kicks in every time I lose 10% of my health. Sometimes you'll see a purple buff, purple heart. That means you've lost 10% of your health. And the regens do not stack. Basically, they wait for one to fall off. Then if you have a purple heart sitting there, it kicks in and is converted to a regen, which it takes 10% of your life. You got to lose 10% of your life to start the regen. You will regen about 5%, a little more than 5% of that back. So really not a bad passive regen, to be honest with you. As a 5-star, this is probably going to be a lot stronger just because her base health is going to be a lot higher. But really, at 40 damage or 40 health ticking there, I will take that any day. And then lastly, I will mention briefly, not something you'll use a lot, but it is there. Her heavy attack does have 2,000 increase to its critical rating. So basically, if you've got a couple of fury buffs active and maybe a precision buff, that thing is going to crit pretty much every time and hit really hard. As you saw right there, that was about over 9,000 damage in just a heavy hit. So just something to be aware of. Probably won't use it a lot. Maybe if you're down, kind of your assassinate mastery is kicked in, you can use it. But just something I did want to mention. Overall, I am having an absolute blast playing with this new character. I think anytime you can get your hands on somebody who does, massive crit damage, or you see big numbers kind of popping off the screen, that is always a lot of fun to play. I wasn't playing with Thor. I didn't have Thor duped before patch 12.0, and I know that he had some absolute crazy damage with his S3 and the armor break, so I'm not necessarily wanting to make that direct comparison. But now that he has been nerfed, I would say pretty much anywhere that you would have taken Thor in the past, she is probably a pretty good alternative. In fact, she might ultimately be a little bit better just because she does get the regen back. So definitely for alliance questing, a good option for act exploration, for special events. Outside of things like Batista's challenge where you're dealing with spite, she's going to be really good for. Obviously, with the way that Mystic Dispersion works right now, she is not going to be a viable option for Alliance Wars. Maybe, this is a big maybe, if you're down in some of the lower tiers and people are not running Mystic Dispersion yet because of how much it costs, you can take her in there. But definitely once you get up to the mid to higher end tiers, she's just going to give way too much power to, the Mystic Champs, Magic, Juggernaut, Mordo, whoever that you're running up against. Just not going to go well for you. But outside of that, she does, I think, have a lot of use in the game. So if you've got her as a 3-star or 4-star maybe, and haven't ranked her up or used her, definitely give it a go. I think once you spend a little time playing with her, and hopefully this will give a little bit of an explanation as far as the rotation you need to use. But I think if you do spend some time with her, like I said, you will actually find her to be a pretty enjoyable champ to play with. Alright guys, until the next video, thank you always so much for the support. Questions, leave them down below. Hit me up over on Twitter, answer questions over there as well. Alright, till I see you in the next one. Have a great day.